And good morning. It is Monday morning in the zone, and good morning, Shirley.
Good morning, Rosie. How are you this morning?
I am great. I am great. It was a wonderful weekend. It was filled with lots of sunshine and rain in the latter part of the day, which we like in Florida, right? Because we get all of our playtime in.
That's right, all the time, all the time. But I love it when that beautiful sun comes out and you just see the bright blue skies. So I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. Did you do anything fun this weekend?
Actually, I spent time with my puppy, and I she just loves walking around our neighborhood, and I just decided to kind of just relax and take it easy this weekend. So
Good
just
for you.
energizing to slay the week.
Yeah, yeah, that's the game plan, right? Well, everyone will notice that my battle isn't here this morning. We've given Valerie the day off, much deserved, and I kind of had a really productive weekend, actually. Shirley, I have been working on building a fence in my backyard, and I want to do it myself. So I spent about 6 hours on Saturday from early in the morning until a little after the middle of the day, so I could get it done before it got super hot. And I felt really accomplished when I got done. And I had plans then to kind of finish some of that part of that project on Sunday, but I didn't do that. So I started the weekend with really good intentions, but I didn't finish the weekend. I guess I finished the weekend with a great day of what are they, a clarifying break on
Oh,
Sunday. So,
good.
and we all need to do that, especially when you're working mentally or physically. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's so great to kind of do some DIY around the house. Like I try to do things like that, like those
yeah.
projects, and then I just start and I'm like, no, I gotta get some help because I just never end up like finishing them. But your next portion of like taking some time for the mind, body, and soul is so important. Definitely,
Mhm.
that's good re-energize for the week, nonetheless.
Yeah, one of my youngest son said to me once, we were having a really philosophical conversation, which he and I often do. And he said he was proud of himself for something that he had accomplished. And and he was trying to tell me that I should be proud of something that I had accomplished. And I said, he went on to say, we in life we tend to disregard the small victories, and we just say, well, I could have done more, or I could have done better, or maybe I should have done something differently, instead of saying, I accomplished this and I'm proud of this, and now I'll revel in that, and then see what's next, see what step we're going to next. And when we had that conversation, I said to him I was going to share it in one of our cohorts, because as startup businesses, we often are only looking at those big things we have to take care of that are looming over us, weighing down our shoulders. It's driving us nuts that we can't get from where we are to where we want to be faster. But we have to remember to revel in those small victories. The fact that you took one step towards building that business you wanted is incredibly huge, because it shows a level of faith and hope that you have and are not recognizing, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm telling you, your son is a very wise man.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like a lot of times we do beat ourselves up because we just want to knock out the big rocks and
Yep.
not really gleaming on how important the little rocks are, along the way. And I
Yep.
see myself a lot of times as I'm building my business, beating myself up because I feel as though I'm not getting anywhere.
Yep.
But then, looking hindsight and see all the little steps that you've taken along the way, you're like, wow, I did a lot of little work,
Yeah.
work.
And it was a lot of work to do all those
Absolutely.
little things. It's sort of
Absolutely.
like, a snowball started as a single snowflake, right?
Absolutely.
And so, and it didn't become a snowball until you started putting all of those together. Boy, we are really on point this morning, aren't we?
Absolutely. I love it because it's just such a great reminder that a lot of times we just have to have that gratitude, right? And we
Yep.
need to have that grace within ourselves, because
Yep.
our biggest critics are ourselves.
Yes.
And we see ourselves work, and we don't realize like the energy that we're putting into building something.
Mm-hmm.
One of the books that I've read, The Compound Effect, I don't know if you read that.
I have not, but I'm writing it down.
Yes, yes. Well, it's about, investing. It's a financial type of book, but it also correlates to us building our businesses, or
Mhm.
building, or going after a project. All the little small investments in time compound to this big, return on investment.
Yep.
So that is something that we always need to keep in mind.
It's really funny that most of the people that come to Action Zone and participate in Activate, the first stage of starting their business, have expressed that they've been thinking about this for years,
Mm.
or at least long term. And little things that they've done during that time that they've just been thinking about it has been setting themselves up to bring them to us where they're actually ready to start a startup class, and put all of these different thoughts and ideas, and even things they've put down on paper into action. So all of those make a difference. It is possible to just come up with an idea and jump right in, and as a serial entrepreneur, I'm guilty of that, at least on one or two occasions. But it's just a matter of the perspective. You need to put into perspective all of the little things that you do for your business or your life or your family or your friends, and recognize that you're making a difference in a lot of different ways. Even if it doesn't seem like it's that big, Powerball moment, where it's just all at once. And in some respects, I think that you cherish those smaller victories because they were just as hard to attain as the bigger ones, but it is an accomplishment, and we do need to recognize it. And for that, I agree with you. My son was very insightful to say that it's not a bad thing to pat yourself on the back and congratulate yourself for that little thing that you accomplished.
Absolutely.
It might mean a big thing to somebody else.
Oh, 100%. And it's something that I'm sure when the students, or when the business owners come into the cohort, you guys try to ingrain that within them, because I know it's so easy to give up, or it's so easy to get frustrated, especially
Yeah.
when it's hard enough to kind of realize your ideas, right?
Yes.
And then it's harder to sell it to other people, right? to
Mhm.
to to try to convince somebody else why your product is the best in the
Right.
market for you to invest on, and it's a hustle, and it's a hurdle. And I'm sure that by instilling just the mindfulness of, hey, make sure that you keep doing the work. This is hard work. This is not easy, but
Nope.
you see the benefits and the return at the end.
Yep.
And it's just having that mind that there's a light on the other end of the tunnel,
And
definitely.
there's going to be a number of times when you get kicked to the curb.
Uh,
Your feet get pushed out from underneath you, and really the desire to just quit at that point is so strong. You almost feel like it's, if I don't just stop this now, I'm going to drive myself insane, or I'm going to go broke, or I'm going to alienate my family and friends, or whatever that consequence you think is going to happen if you continue on this path. And I'm not to say that sometimes those aren't true, but trust me when I say, in an hour or a day or a week, something will happen that will, and sometimes even longer, that will reaffirm why you started that project in the first place, and why it was so important to you, and what you think it could do to change the lives of others, solve those pain points for other people. So the hardship sometimes be very temporary.
mm,
More often than not, it's very temporary, because a couple of things could happen. You figure out whatever roadblock you were facing, how to get around it, or you figure out that what you thought you were going to be doing needed to be tweaked in a little bit, of a way so that it was more applicable, more profitable, more helpful to the people who experienced whatever issue your service or product was going to solve. And so once you get to that point where you figured out how you need to change it, then all hands on deck. We're off and running to the races again, right? And you'll run into another wall, and that's normal. And sometimes, and we've talked about this a lot on this show, sometimes failure is just the only option. It's not a viable idea. You are not either able or willing to change it in a way that it does make sense, and that's perfectly okay too. As a business owner, you need to be invested in your business holistically, mind, body, and soul. And so if changing that idea means that it doesn't align with the way you want to work or the product or service you want to deliver, then that's not your product or service. That's not the business for you. That doesn't mean there won't be any, just means that, okay, that was a failure. What did I learn from that? What am I going to take with me to my next endeavor?
100%. So Rosie, and I'm looking forward to attaining the next cohort 1000%. Really want to dive in deep. So when do you think that an entrepreneur, it's the right time to say, hey, okay, I see that this is not going anywhere. I'm hitting roadblocks. Like, what should I do now? Like, when do you see that would be appropriate to kind of then pivot?
I think always and first and foremost, if you are hearing from your customers, and that means you actually have to be out there talking to potential customers, deciding who that market is, why they are your customer, and what their avatar is. What do they look like? When you have absolutely discovered that what you are offering doesn't fit anybody that you have identified, then you need to figure out one of two things. Go back to looking at those your notes from those customer interviews, those interactions, and discover what it was that was different from what you were trying to do. And if that's not what you want to do, then you've got to figure out some other passion, some other idea, or some iteration of the original idea that does sit well with you. And then if it's causing you so much angst, so much frustration, costing you money, impacting your personal relationships, then you have to wonder, what forces are working against me that I'm so hard-headed that I want to keep moving forward with, and I just need to stop. That's a really hard conversation to have with yourself. It's hard for us to be honest with ourselves sometimes, especially when we think we have the best idea. Everybody is our customer.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to say no. I'm going to make $1 million in the next month. But
absolutely.
you have to be cognizant of the fact that that's not real. And sometimes that means enlisting a partner or a sounding board. Somebody's somebody's reputation that you trust and who is not as emotionally impacted about your idea as you are.
Mhm.
And then listen to what they have to say and be willing to be coachable and movable. That you can make a decision that's going to be best for you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And that is something that, like, me going on my journey is so important to keep in mind, because we're so married to, like, our baby, right? Our creative.
Yep.
And we don't think about that at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's the people that we serve.
Yep.
So how do we kind of keep in mind to not get too married into the idea, but more of thinking about what does my ideal customer need, right? Even when we pivot. And I think your next point of maybe looking for somebody that can enlighten you and give you some perspective that's not necessarily married to your projects can
Right.
kind of, snap the finger and say, snap out of it. And I think having mentors and coaches along
Mhm.
the way pays so much. Even as for me, I saw so much benefit as I was transitioning from the military to consistently have not only an accountability partner, a kind of a
Mhm.
battle buddy, right? How we call it, but a mentor and a coach, because, you know, I saw myself kind of like just having this narrow view of
Right.
what I thought was right. And then this other person is saying, wait a minute, have you thought about this? So I think it's so important to always have somebody neutral out there to advise and assist.
And be aware, and I'll tell you why in a second, but be aware of what you are willing and not willing to do. Russ Barnes tells a great story about hiring a coach. You know, he's been building Sistro for years. He has made great, huge strides. And if you haven't looked at sistro.org recently, you need to, because some of the best resources you're going to find for your startup and your growth are right there. But he hired a coach, and he said he found out that he was uncoachable. He found out that and of all the people, I would not have, he said, his ideas were not my ideas, and it just didn't work. And he could be more articulate about why that relationship didn't work. But I think it's important to recognize that too. Perhaps Russ is not coachable. I don't think that. I don't believe that. I know that in that case, he didn't have a good fit with his coach.
Right.
But if you have one coach and it's not working, then don't be afraid to go try something else, because it is very important to have people around you that are both supportive and objective. And that's a very difficult this COVID brain. Thank you. This COVID brain, in the middle of a word, it just stops. The combination of objective and what was the other one I said? Yeah, okay, we'll have to rewind the tape. You all heard it. You can just watch it. That's a really hard combination to get, because you tend to surround yourself with people who believe in you and support you.
Yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
yet you want people who are going to be objective and give you good advice that is based on the idea, not what you think of the idea. And so that's why, in Activate, the very first things that we tackle are your concept discovery, if it's valid, and customer discovery. And if you are hearing things that are contrary to what your idea is, you can't just say, oh, well, that's fine, I'm just going to keep plowing forward anyway, I'll find the people with paying customers eventually. And that doesn't work that way. And we also tell you, never interview customers that are people who know, like, and love you, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
Except for maybe the friends and family and loved ones of the guy who invented the pet rock, because they probably told him he was insane, and he did it anyway, and it just took off. But there's just so many great stories in history, of business history, where people either went their way and failed miserably, and others who used the resources around them and the people to help shape and they were successful. But I have to say that there were also the opposite. People who went their way against everybody else's tide and they still succeeded, and others who followed all the advice and still failed. That's the ultimate challenge of being a business owner and starting a business, is that both of those options are equally viable.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's a balance, because either way you can fail, I guess.
Right, right.
But you're never failing, because you're failing forward.
That's right. You'll learn something every time. You'll learn something every time. And hopefully it's not a lesson that's going to cost you a lot of money. Because that's really, or relationships. If you've invested so much of yourself and your money into a project, and you're not listening to other resources, objective ideas and thoughts, or just thought inducing things. I love it when somebody says to me, have you considered XYZ? You know what? I didn't. Let me think about that. Maybe that's where I need to make that next little jog in the road. So it's really important that, in the whole grand scheme of things, that you surround yourself with people who support you, but you do your research with people who don't know you. Right?
Yeah. And you just have to learn to discern, I guess. And I think with time, you kind of get that good gut feeling, of where to go. I mean, I'm sure for like rookies such as myself, I'm going to try to keep an open mind and take everything in, but also like know in my heart that there's certain things that I still want to follow,
Hmm.
or still want to stay true to myself, right?
Of
And
course.
what I, what I want to pursue. But that is so important. And so have you had like alumni that have tangible products and intangible products, such as like coaching services and things of that nature?
Oh yeah, and that's the interesting thing about all the people that come through Action Zone is there isn't any one business that they all, and it's not all products or all services. It is such a mix. I mean, everything from dog treats made from spent beer grains because her husband brews beer, so she's found a way to reuse those into healthy snacks for dogs. To psychologists, Dr. Carlos Garcia has a thriving business. Dr. Ted Grellner has an incredible. If you need a tooth pulled or a wisdom, or your kids need wisdom teeth, there's nobody better to go to.
Right.
Troy from Tampa Steel, who's creating heavy duty industrial products.
He's our next
And
spotlight, right?
yeah, it might not be the next one, but he's going to be on one of our entrepreneur spotlights. But and Tammy Foster Knight, who does all kinds of medical supplies and healthcare supplies that I just and everything in between. There is just no single concept, and that's what I like about our cohorts is because even though they are all working individually on their business, the product and service that they're concentrating on, they're working together on everybody's success because everybody knows somebody, and their network is made more huge just by virtue of the fact that they're sitting in a classroom with 10, 15, 20 other people, because when they have a challenge they can put that out to the group, and those people go, I know somebody, or I know somebody that knows somebody. you
Absolutely.
that's probably, I think Russ said it recently. One of the things that we do exceptionally well at Action Zone is, I mean, you're not just joining a startup class. We give them tools and resources and connections that they can expand their network and make other connections to build their business. And that's really unique to us, I think,
That
because
is,
we
yeah,
look at the whole picture.
holistically, absolutely. And I'm telling you, like, as you're starting or being in the middle or even scaling, network is so important. Like, I
Yep.
didn't know how important it was until I embraced it and dove into it, because I've always looked at myself as an introvert, right? And I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do having to talk to all these people and being connected? But I'm telling you, it's kind of like it's like how do you say, like a web, you start with one person,
Yep.
and then you then connects to others and others and others, and then everything just keeps building from there,
Yep.
right? I read in one of the other books. I'm a reader, so I'm gonna call a couple names, but Think and Grow Rich, right? One
Uh-huh.
of the chapters talks about masterminds, right? And what you just said just reminded me of a mastermind. When you get together with like-minded individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only can they challenge, your thoughts and ideas, but they can also help you enrich them, and
Yep.
also provide you, like you just mentioned, links to other people and to other networks where you can keep growing your ideas and your business. So
Yep.
that is definitely so important to have.
When you mentioned being an introvert, I say that I'm an introvert. Nobody believes me when I tell you that, when I say that, because when I know you and I love you and I'm out there, I'm out there, right? I'm connecting people and I'm getting connected to people. But I I don't like the whole networking thing. I'm very awkward about it. I am the one that you see in the corner with the other people in the corner, and we make friends over there. All of us introverts are great over there on the wall, right? And we just kind of watch the other people in the rest of the room. And I'll share this story with you because it goes back to what you say about having an accountability partner. When Valerie and I first started Action Zone, we were trying to get connected in all these different places so we could let people know what Action Zone was about. And I hated being dragged to all these events. I hated having to meet all these people. It just was not, it was so contrary to my comfort level that it was a challenge. But with my battle beside me, it was easy, right? She would make sure that I got to meet the people I needed to meet. And I really felt comfortable then. So we planned this meeting at this one group, and and I get in my car, and it was probably about a 45-minute drive, and I'm on 75, and Valerie calls me and she says, I gotta cancel because I've got some emergency happened. And while she's talking to me, I'm figuring out which is the next exit so I could get off and turn around and go home. And so I told her, not a problem, don't worry about it. We'll make it up another day. I didn't tell her I wasn't going to go. I just said we'll do it another day. And because even I knew that I was going to get some grief if I told her that. So we hang up the phone, and I'm about a mile and a half from the exit that I know I'm going to take to go back home, and I'm like, oh, thank God. She calls me back. She says she called the woman at one of the women at the event and told her that I was going to be there and to expect me. So now I'm on the hook. Now I can't not go because my battle called and paved the way for me. Exactly. And I was mortified, and I was like, oh man. And as I'm talking to her, I'm listening to her on the car phone, and I'm going past the exit. I'm like, oh, I want to get off. I don't want to be there. But having that accountability person will help balance the things that you are not good at or not comfortable with or just don't want to do with their shortcomings or their uncomfortableness. And that for Valerie and I, that's very, very true. We each have different strengths, and we've learned in the last 5 years how to play on each other's strengths. Depend on each other's strengths.
Right. Well, you complement each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Right. That quite by accident. I mean, somebody else there was a higher power that put us together. That's all I know.
But isn't that similar to business, to starting a business, kind of diving into the unknown and the things that you fear?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to dive in order to stretch.
Yep. Yeah, you absolutely do. We didn't learn to swim when we came out of the womb, right?
Exactly.
You had to feel like you were drowning for a minute before you figured out your arms and your legs had to move. Absolutely. There's so many analogies that support that. Growth is painful. Physically, when you're growing up as a child, you do get growing pains as your bones are stretching and your muscles are getting bigger. And, that's the same way with starting or growing a business. And we've had people in our program that have been in business for a number of years. I think the record is by Dr. Ted Grellner, who had been in business for like 30 years. And he came here to start a new business because he wasn't happy with the way his dental practice was going. And it turned out that he was able to save the dental practice by doing what we taught in the class. And now he's like everywhere. He's out of the country. He's in New York, on the big billboard in New York Times Square. I'm just so proud of him and so happy for his success. Yeah. But, just putting yourself someplace where people can help you make those challenging decisions to help push you out of your comfort zone, because sometimes that's what we need. Now, that's not to say that I'm ever going to give anybody the power to push me out of a perfectly good plane with a parachute. That ain't going to happen ever. But the point is, I have partners that would do that, make me feel more comfortable about doing that. So I have people in my life that would. This is still not going to happen, but
I'm sure that event was a success. You were like, oh, what was I worrying about? Everything went well.
I don't think I felt that way, but maybe in retrospect, I feel like I didn't die while I was there. Nobody made me feel embarrassed for being there. It wasn't like my shoes. One time I worked at a company. One time I had shoes that were the same color, same shoe but two different colors. I wore 2 different days. That didn't happen that day. I didn't have egg on my face. I didn't spill orange juice on my lap or anything. So for social etiquette, I guess I was okay. But yeah, I'm glad that she pushes me the way she does. And I don't think, I laugh about it now because I don't know if she did that because she knew I was going to get off the freeway and go home. Yeah.
But you know what? I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that you were an introvert. Seriously. I mean, you're just so lively and vibrant and with a lot of wisdom and knowledge. So,
Russ describes it that you can do those things, but you're exhausted by them afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
And so I guess maybe that's a better description of, rather than being an introvert, just that social Of course, once I get to know you, I'm fine. I'm the life of the
Right.
party.
But you have to take a break afterwards to recharge.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
told
unless I'm on a cruise ship, and then I could go for 8 days.
oh, so
Strangers or not, but everybody who knows me knows that.
that's so
So, man, this has been a great conversation this morning. I'm
yes,
so
that's
glad we
wonderful.
this kind of stumbled into this. So, I wanted you to, you are, if you don't know Shirley, Shirley was on prior. She's on our marketing committee on our board, and she's doing a bang up job. I'm sure you're all noticing more social media posts from Action Zone because Shirley is the mastermind behind that. And I cannot thank you enough because every time I see one, I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad she's here. I'm so glad she's here. You were sharing that there's some events coming up that we want everybody to know about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first one,
Oh, you went on mute and you owe me a quarter. Before you get in the cohort, you're going to learn that. You
there we
talk
go.
on mute, you owe me a quarter. I send you a bill at the end of the class.
Here we go. So for those of you wanting to grow business through marketing, we have a marketing event coming up tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the ECC. Down at Ybor, and that's going to be spearheaded by Diane Angelo. Great course. I did go to that the last time, and she gives a lot of tips and tricks on how to scale on your marketing and social media.
And
Um,
every one of hers is a little bit different, right? It's not like if you went to one, you're going to see the same thing the next one.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about how to ID your ideal client and how to create Facebook groups to nurture
Cool.
your avatar to then
Very
sell.
cool.
So that's going to be very important. I'll be there. So then we have the Celebrating Black Business Month event coming up on the 12th of August at 9. It's going to be a Facebook Live. And then we have the Entrepreneurs Speak on the 20th of August at 8:30. I believe that's in Fowler Avenue, but any other information that you need for these wonderful events are posted on our Action Zone Facebook page. So don't miss it. It's going to be wonderful and a lot of valuable tips and tricks.
That Entrepreneur Speaks, if you have not attended one of these, you really need to make the time. I was so blessed to be able to be on the initial roster of the when Daryl Heitch first started this. It is such a fabulous brief period of time on Saturday morning that you get to hear from other business owners and kind of their startup journey or how they feel about being in business, or it's just a plethora of different topics that each speaker gets to decide what they want to talk about. Daryl gives you some ideas on to get you started, some topics, but it's great. And it only lasts for like an hour and a half on Saturday morning. There's good coffee. He always has good eats there. And to be able to, again, expand your network and to just hear from how others have tackled their challenges. And then you go, okay, so this is all normal.
I know.
I'm good now.
That's so important. I'm going to attend that one. And I mean, what a great way to just start your morning, especially as, as a building entrepreneur, to just listen, like you said, to others and know
Yep.
that everything is going to be okay. Right.
Yep.
And
That's all you need to know.
you learn from their lessons learned. So it's a
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also want to mention that we are now recruiting for our next two cohorts. Actually, recruiting is our registration page, which I'll put the link in the chat, is always open. Right now we have an in-person cohort in Tampa starting on September 17th, and that will be held on Saturday mornings at the Entrepreneur Collaborative Center. And then we have a virtual cohort if you're not in the Tampa area, if you're anywhere in the state. So for those of you that are listening, and all of our loyal listeners know, if you know people and the veterans in the rest of the state, please send them this link. So that one is going to start on October 22nd. And that's going to be virtually on Saturday mornings on Zoom, also from 9 to 1. So you will have an opportunity to, if no matter where you are, that you can still participate in an Action Zone Activate. And Activate is not just for early stage startups, like I have an idea and I don't know what to do with it, or I know that I can be a good business owner, but I'm not quite sure if I've nailed down the concept yet. So all the way to and including I've had a business for 5, 10, 15 years and it's not growing like I thought. I think I'm missing something. What can I do to make this better? And that was the situation at a minimum with Ted Grellner, but several others that have been in the program that have already been in business. I love. One said, JD said once in a cohort this earlier this year, everything that I learned at Action Zone Activate was more focused and more pertinent than what I paid this consulting company to help me through prior. So take that for what it's worth. And I know JD would share his experience with anybody. But if you're interested, I'll put the link, the registration link in the chat here. We take about 20 people in each cohort, so you don't want to get closed out. Make sure you do it soon. And then you'll be hearing from us with more information. Oh, excuse me, just a minute. You keep talking.
So, no, I just wanted to, I know you spoke a little bit about the Activate cohort. And so what other areas do we help ideate and kind of scale?
We have, and we're waiting to hear when the opening will be for this. We have Action Zone Activate, which is that first stage that I just told you about. Mm-hmm. Action Zone Incubate is an opportunity for 3 months where you get to work out and tackle the operational challenges of now you've got a business. And that's everything from your bookkeeping to your social media to hiring your first staff to a plethora of ideas. And you meet twice a month for 3 months, and you have subject matter experts that share their information and then help you specifically tackle your problems, your challenges. And then the last one that I don't know if we'll have funded this year is called Action Zone Accelerate. And Accelerate is for the business owner that's been generating revenue and needs an experience, a board of advisors experience that will really help them strategize how they're going to grow, what their exit looks like, and how they're going to get there from where they are to where they're going to be. And I'm hopeful that we get that funded this year, because the last one we did was just phenomenally successful for the participants. And I'm hopeful that we'll get to do another one of those. So right now, Activate's on the board for September 17th in person and October 22nd virtually. And then hopefully we'll hear about Incubate very soon.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so wonderful that you all get to help a business owner in every stage of their business. That's wonderful.
You're a part of the team. You get to do it too.
Yes, I know. It's just so exciting, and I'm just so looking forward to it. Definitely.
Oh, I can't wait to have you in the cohort. I know you've been trying and you've been so busy, but it's interesting. George Zwerko is one of the co-founders of Action Zone, and we asked him to participate in a cohort just I think in the second part of the pandemic in 2020. And coincidentally, he was going through a merger of his companies, a couple of his companies he was merging together at the same time. And it was his experience was so great because he co-founded Action Zone, and he was the president of the board, or the chairman of the board for the first 2.5 years. And it wasn't until he actually went through a cohort that he was like, oh my gosh, this is what we do, Wow. And it helped him so much, he said, during that transition with his companies. So it is, it's always, I love it when we don't require our volunteers and board members to come through a cohort, and many of them come through a cohort and then ask to serve as a volunteer or on the board. But it is so helpful when you do, because all of a sudden now all those pieces of the puzzle fit together. You understand conceptually what we do, but when you actually go through a cohort, you're like, wow, yes. Just wow.
You see it from the other side. You see it now from the different angles. That's so interesting. And that's what I'm looking forward to experiencing as well. Not just, learn about, correlating and solidifying my business, but also looking at it from the next angle, because then I can be a better resource for Action Zones. So
and for those people that we serve.
Yes.
Well, Shirley, this was wonderful chatting with you this morning. You are welcome to join us anytime you want. We tell that to the board members all the time. Anytime you want to come hop on in the zone, the link is always there. And maybe I'll remind them again, because it's always fun. It would have been great to have Russ here to share some of his stories about coaching and introversion and that kind of thing. But if he watches this later, Russ, you're always in my thoughts and mine. Your lessons are my lessons all the time. You're one of the greatest out there, and I'm so glad that you're part of Action Zone too. So everybody, I'll put the link to the registration in the chat, and Shirley already told you to look at the Facebook page for the events. She's doing a great job of keeping those up to date, and we hope to see you at one of those. And Shirley, I hope you have a great week. Thank you for helping make it off to a good start this morning on Monday.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun, and looking at subsequent ones. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Bye everybody, have a great week.
Bye.